Okay, many thanks to the organizer and especially to Harry Rice for his kind invitation. My talk is about new French recommendations, and I will try to compare them to European and US recommendation and what's new and what implications. First of all, what are these French recommendations? The values concern healthy individuals, and they include the objective of maintaining this good health, and which corresponds to the limits of primary prevention. What are the requirements for essential and conditionally essential polyunsaturated fatty acids? They were determined to ensuring proper functioning of the entire body, particularly brain development and functions, and ensuring primary prevention from some illnesses, especially metabolic syndrome, diabetes, obesity, some cancer, cardiovascular diseases, and AMD. What is important is the method which has been used by French people to produce new recommendation, because it's, to my point of view, very innovative. First, estimation of the minimum serological requirement. Second, identification of data enabling adapting this minimum requirement for primary prevention. And third, and it's a very important point, taking into account not only epidemiological studies, but also serological and cytopathological data in vitro models and animal models. Thus, the conclusion of this recommendation are that for linoleic acid, the estimation is 4% of energy intake, which is similar to previous French recommendation. For alpha-linolenic acid, recommendation has been increased to 1% of energy intake. And what is proposed is a ratio of linoleic to alpha-linolenic acid inferior to 5, which is in accordance with most data and most recommendation in scientific literature. For DHA, the recommendation has been increased to 250 milligram a day. The previous recommendation was 125. And a recommendation has been proposed for EPA plus DHA to 500 milligram a day. And there is now a specific recommendation for EPA, which is the difference between the total and DHA recommendation, that is 250 milligram a day. For specific recommendation for prevention of some diseases, recommendation show for metabolic syndrome, diabetes, obesity, 500 milligram of DHA, cardiovascular diseases from 500 to 750. For some cancers, breast and colon, 500. For neuropsychiatric disorders, 200, 300, and for EMD, 500. In fact, the total chosen has been 500 milligram for EPA plus DHA. Now we can compare the French recommendation to the EFSA recommendation. EFSA is the European Food Safety Authority. It's somewhat different because EFSA consider they had not to propose or formulate dietary reference for intake of total cis polyunsaturated fatty acids, first. Second, they consider that they cannot propose a specific N-3 to N-6 ratio because insufficient data, which is a little bit surprising, but it's their decision. They propose for linoleic acid the same amount than French recommendation, 4% of energy intake. For linolenic acid, they recommend only 0.5%, which can be considered to be a little bit low, and no specific value, as I tell previously, for N-3 to N-6 ratio. Then for other recommendation in respect to cardiovascular diseases, they recognize that the amount should be between 250 milligram to 500, but they decided that 250 milligram API plus DHA would be sufficient. Now, let's have a look to US dietary guidelines from 2010. These guidelines propose to increase seafood consumption in place of some meat and poultry, to use oils to replace solid fats where possible, any type of oils excepted this one rich in saturated fatty acid. Fat intake should emphasize monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fat, such as those found in seafood, but as you see, there is no specific recommendation for a daily amount of PUFA or N-3 fatty acids. Consume less than 10% of calories from saturated fatty acids, and for people with high and average cardiovascular risk, to consume seafood to obtain about 250 milligrams of EPA plus DHA a day, which is considered to be equivalent to 2 4-ounce serving fish, which is about 250 grams of fish, especially oily fish. What are other world recommendations? I will show you them very rapidly. There are quite a lot, especially from the beginning of years 2000, and they are between 200 milligram EPA plus DHA to 1 gram EPA plus DHA. Most of them has been proposed for prevention of cardiovascular risk. French AFSA also proposed recommendation for pregnancy and lactation, and as you can see, for total EPA and DHA is similar to adult people, whatever pregnancy or not pregnancy, whatever lactation or not lactation, 500 milligram a day. EFSA will recommend an intake in addition to the 250 milligram proposed for adults to increase it with a supplement of 100 and 200 milligram of DHA, and for infants between 6 and 24 months, an amount to 100 milligram a day, and specific advice for children, idem to adults when it was necessary. There is also a recommendation for the European Commission, which is not very different, to increase superior to 200 milligram DHA a day, but they also say that 1 gram or 2.7 gram a day of EPA plus DHA has no adverse effect, which is also very important. For women in childbearing age, 1 to 2 portions of sea fish per week, including oily fish. For neonates, the recommendation in France are not in milligram a day, but as a percent of total fat, total fatty acids, 0.32%. But we also have from a scientific point of view to consider very important data from literature, and there is discrepancy. If we look here at the very recent Cochrane database data, which are meta-analyses, what is the conclusion? The conclusion for fatty acid supplementation in preterm is, on pooling of results, no clear long-term benefits or harms were demonstrated for preterm infant receiving long-chain PUFA supplemented formula, which is a little bit surprising. If we look at long-chain polyunsaturated fatty acid supplementation in infants born at term, routine supplementation of term infant milk formula with long-chain PUFA cannot be recommended. So I think it's the interest of French recommendation to have considered not only epidemiological data, but also in vitro and models and physiological and physiopathological data, whatever the results of some meta-analysis. If we keep them, no interest for giving DHA to infants. So concerning the prevention of type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular diseases, it's about the same. First, here is analysis of many studies performed in USA, Europe, and Asia about the relative risk by increasing in one serving a week fish or increase in 300 milligram of EPA. As you see, the results are different in geographical regions. No effect, or maybe a little bit deleterious effect in USA, no effect in Europe, and a beneficial preventive effect in Asia. The reasons for this discrepancy are very unclear. So concerning now the risk of cardiovascular diseases outcomes, first of all, what is clear is that long omega-3 fatty acid always decrease triglycerides, plasma triglycerides. But some studies show that they also could increase LDL cholesterol. If we want to decrease plasma triglyceride in a significant way, the amount of EPA plus DHA must be superior to 3 grams a day. Here you have quite a lot of studies for prevention of cardio heart diseases. And what you can see on the left of the line is that all these studies show a beneficial effect for prevention of cardiovascular diseases. But some conclusions are important. First, fish and -3 PUFA reduce the risk of CHD events primarily due to prevention of CHD death, probably because of the antiarrhythmic effect of long-chain PUFA. Potential effects on total cardiovascular disease events or total mortality are more modest. Inverse association with fish consumption and stroke, but no effect of long-chain PUFA, and other events require further studies. Concerning the secondary prevention, a very recent meta-analysis showed no beneficial effect of omega-3 fatty acids for prevention, secondary prevention of cardiovascular diseases. But you can see that half studies show beneficial effect and the other are no beneficial effect. So total meta-analysis is negative. So 2 conclusions. First, new French recommendation propose higher and more precise adequate intake for EPA plus DHA than European and US recommendation. And the method used all types of pathological data is, to my point of view, a true progress. Second, in regard to some data concerning prevention, 500 milligram a day could be insufficient. Otherwise, discrepancy occurs between studies and meta-analyses. It's true for infants, it's true for cardiovascular diseases, it's true for diabetes. To obtain a daily intake superior to 500 milligrams of EPA plus DHA could be difficult in some people with foodstuffs alone. As a demonstration, in USA, the consumption is only 125 milligrams a day in non-Hispanic whites, 160 milligrams a day in blacks, 130 milligrams a day in Hispanics, and the median value is inferior to 60 milligrams a day. Other points, the safety and sustainability of the consumption should also be taken into account because consumers think also about that. So, last slide, many over-the-counter supplements are available. EPA plus DHA per 1 gram capsule varies from 300 to 850 milligrams. Listed and actual contents are similar, which is a good point. Fish oil supplements contain no mercury and very low absolute quantities of dioxin and PCBs. Choice can be thus determined by price, by taste, by formulation, by availability. And if significant triglyceride lowering is a goal, use of concentrated formulation are required because the total amount a day should be superior to 3 grams a day, and it will permit to obtain reasonable daily numbers of capsules. Many thanks.